out by introducing our panelists. Starting here with Jerome Underwood, President and CEO of Action for a Better Community, offering services in Monroe and Ontario counties, ABC an array of programs and services in the areas of employment, early childhood education, youth services, adult education services, health services, community development, and energy conservation. Their mission is to promote and provide opportunities for low-income individuals and families to become self-sufficient. Before joining ABC in February of 2018, Jerome spent 9 years in various management positions with the Rochester City School District, 11 years as Vice President and CFO at Datadriven, and 9 years in commercial banking with HSBC. Born on the beautiful Caribbean island of Antigua, Jerome holds an MBA in finance from RIT and a Bachelor of Science degree in accounting from St. John Fisher College. He is the immediate past board chair of Action for a Better Community, position he held for 7 years, and also sits on the board of the Greater Rochester Community Transportation Foundation, and is a former board member of the Rochester Joint Schools Construction Board. In the 2015-16 school year, Jerome served as Rochester Institute of Technology's Manette Professor, a position chosen by the university's president and past Manette professors, and he is a founding member of the Greater Rochester Black Agenda Group. So a very, very strong resume and lots of great insight to share with us. Next up, we have Daisy Rivera Algarine, who is the Director of Neighborhood Service Centers for the City of Rochester, appointed in 2017 by Mayor Lovely Warren to her current role with a mission to make the city's neighborhood service centers more focused on customer service and quality of life, increase the diversity within the neighborhood service centers, and ensure that all residents feel welcome in Rochester and are engaged with their city government. Prior to this role, Daisy was a senior marketing specialist in the city's Department of Neighborhood and Business Development, providing financial and technical advice and zoning support to small businesses. She's the project manager for the North Clinton Avenue Revitalization Project. Daisy, who is Puerto Rican, has worked tirelessly to engage the Latino community. She's a founder of Latinas Unidas of Rochester and developed the highly successful Hispanic Business Expo in 2003. In 2009, she established the first City of Rochester Hispanic Business Development Training for Spanish speakers and is heavily involved in the La Marqueta project. Next up, we have John Laurie, who is president of Cause and Effect Strategy, president and co-founder. Cause and Effect Strategy is a business intelligence firm that leverages data to develop and track strategies that achieve client goals for increasing top-line revenue and decreasing bottom-line costs. Launched in 2015, the firm was recently recognized as the 87th fastest growing agency in the world by Adweek magazine, right here in Rochester. Currently, John sits on the boards of Villa of Hope, Sojourner Home, and the West Arundequite Foundation. He also serves as co-chair of the Future Leaders Advisory Council at the Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce, and is a member of the United Way of Greater Rochester's Emerging Leaders Advisory Council and the Rochester Data Science Consortium. Next up, we have Wanda Cooper, who is Regional Executive Director for the Hillside Work Scholarship Connection. She prides herself on being a servant leader and has more than 20 years experience and an extensive background in the private sector. She is currently pursuing her doctorate in organizational change and leadership at the University of Southern California, and is also a proud member of the Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Inc., which focuses on being action-oriented with community programs designed to demonstrate concerns for the human condition, both nationally and internationally. Wanda has earned several community and academic awards and has served her community on many boards and committees. She currently serves as the Regional Executive Director for Hillside Work Scholarship Connection, which is a nationally recognized youth development program that helps at-risk secondary school students stay in school and earn their high school diploma, while providing invaluable part-time work experience and job skills to help prepare them for life after graduation. And last but not least, we have Jennifer Boutte, who is Director of Development and Community Engagement at CDS Life Transitions. Jennifer is a proud graduate of the Rochester City School District and Roberts Wesleyan College, where she earned her bachelor's in organizational management and master's in strategic leadership. For more than a decade, Jennifer has served in leadership roles in a number of community organizations, including the JCC of Greater Rochester, Wilson Commencement Park, and Catholic Family Center, working in the areas of nonprofit financing and fundraising. Currently, Jennifer serves as the Director of Development and Community Engagement at CDS Life Transitions, securing resources for the unfunded programs that serve individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, seniors and veterans on behalf of CDS Will Foundation, and creating community and partnerships that provide programs and services with affordable housing communities in Western New York and the Southern Tier. Jennifer serves on the board of directors for a number of community organizations, including the Women's Foundation of Genesee Valley, where she has served as the chair of the annual A Purse for Change auction since 2016, Association of Fundraising Professionals Genesee Valley Chapter, and the Greater Rochester Martin Luther King Jr. Commission, where she serves as a treasurer. Last but certainly not least, she is a proud member of the Rochester Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Inc., a private, not-for-profit organization whose purpose is to provide assistance and support through established programs in local communities throughout the world. In December 2019, Jennifer announced her candidacy for Monroe County Clerk. So, the very esteemed panel here, let's give them all a round of applause. So let's jump right into it. We're going to start with Jerome here. This is right to my right. With our first question, please share with us, each of you, what inspired you to get involved with the nonprofit organizations that you serve?
Well, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, that's so much better. Long day, but this is the best part of the day, I guarantee you. That question, varied answer to the question. What inspires me to get involved with any organization? One, the organization's mission is really, really important. What does the organization stand for? What are the values and the core values of the organization? And do they sync up with my values? That's really, really important. Two, even if they don't sync up with that, is there an opportunity to bring my view to the organization? Because many organizations, I think right now, are looking to, diversity and inclusion is a big thing right now. For me, diversity is what I call table stakes, because it's not just the face. The ideological perspective and the worldview that the person brings is more important than what they look like. So for me, that's huge. And finally, what inspires me is, I think it's an innate need in my spirit to help. That's something that's very, very big in our family, to make sure that you're a good villager. In the village, that takes to do so many things. So those three things, if I can find balance in those three, it's a good fit for me.
Thank you.
What inspires me to get involved with a non-for-profit? It's a lot of what Jerome said, but also I'm not looking to get my name on stationaries. I don't need it, and I've been there, done that. I'm 62 years old, and I feel like, okay, it's time to get real here. So in the last 10 years, one of the things that I've done is to really connect what I love to do, what I'm going to go back for and fight for, if that organization serves that area, and I'm going to get involved. So I went from 15 boards of directors to 3. I was very intentional about the ones that I stayed with. I won't tell you the ones that I dropped. But I stayed with the Salvation Army. I stayed with some of the work that Pat Stone does, particularly in lending, and I stayed with Latinas Unidas. The Salvation Army, the one that I give a lot of my time to out of the 3 is because in 1997, I found myself suddenly unemployed. I worked in housing with the homeless, and I knew a lot of the homeless providers. I made a decision to switch jobs, and it didn't work out. My husband retired 25 years and he decided to open a business. Any of you who've been in business, you basically empty out the bank account and it's to the business. So I found myself suddenly unemployed with 3 children, an empty bank account, and I said, what am I gonna do? I knew the Salvation Army helped people who were in emergency situations, so now I was gonna be the client. So I had to swallow a lot of pride. I had to get in line and talk to the intake worker. And I have to say that no special rugs were rolled out for me because they knew me, but they treated me with such dignity and they were so caring that I did not go homeless. They helped me and they helped my family. And when the opportunity came 10 years later, I was tapped to consider their board. No questions asked. I knew the integrity of the organization. So to me, that was really important. I'm still on the board. I've been the chair of the board and I've chaired other things for the Salvation Army. So to me, there was a string connection to them, and that's why I'm still involved with them. But I did tell them that I'm watching the clock because I know the time is up to get away from the board and maybe do something else. So, but that's what inspired me to get involved with an organization. And the other 2 I can talk about later, but that was one of the reasons.
Great. Well, I can certainly identify with a lot of both of those responses. For me, a lot of it has to do with family. My mother worked for a nonprofit here in town called Villa of Hope her entire career. And so when the opportunity to get more involved in an area of women and children's needs, whether it be with the Villa of Hope or with the West Rondequoit Foundation, or even more so with Sojourner Home, I jumped at the opportunity. A lot of that comes from a sense of family and what was instilled by my mother and my stepfather, who's here tonight. But then also the alignment of the purpose. What are we trying to accomplish, and does that come in line? And the third is I feel a lot of responsibility. Times we get written off as entitled. I feel very the opposite of that. The education I was fortunate enough to get, the mentorship I was fortunate enough to receive, I take very personally. And I also feel that there's a strong responsibility in giving that back and helping to ensure that others have the same opportunities that I had, regardless of where they live, what they look like, their gender, their nationality. And those are things that I feel very passionate about in my personal life and in my business life as well. So one of our guiding principles at our company is called diversity of individuals and ideas. And those things are core to why we've been so successful and why we've been able to grow so quickly. So, thank you.
So, I've worked in nonprofit for, as she said, over 20 years. I started when I was 15 years old, so I'm just 35 now. But definitely working in nonprofits was destined for me because I was a consumer. And so if it wasn't for nonprofits, I would not have, I wouldn't be here today being able to talk about the benefit and the value of being champions for nonprofits. So I literally serve who I was. And so for me, it's very important. My mother instilled in me that you give back. You don't just take and not give back. So serving in a nonprofit as a leader and also serving on boards of nonprofit is very dear to my heart. I will say that, just like Jerome said, the mission, you have to be passionate about the mission for the nonprofit that you're serving. If you're looking for a resume builder, go somewhere else, because nonprofits need workers. Nonprofit needs champions. We need people that are willing to roll their sleeves up and understand that we don't have the resources, which is why we can't get all of the work done. So I know going into a nonprofit, I'm there to serve the consumers of that nonprofit as well as the staff, because the staff are working poor as well. So I think that that's the other thing to really be focused on is, as a board member, I am there to be for the leader of the organization, not to challenge the leader, but to help them get the work done. I'm also there to be a champion for the staff and ensure that they are in a environment that is empowering to them and is meeting their needs. Many people on the front lines are getting paid minimal hourly wages, and they are literally paycheck away from the people that they're serving. So it's very important to me that I not just go to a board meeting and, to Daisy's point, be on somebody's website or on somebody's stationery or have it on my resume. It really is about what can I give, and understanding that I'm there to raise money, I am there to champion their cause, and I am there to really bring resources to the table and not be afraid to say, hey, I'm on Connected Communities board, which I am, and they need A, B, and C, and tapping my network to make sure that I could bring something to the table and not just take away from it. So for me, it's about really having that commitment to who I'm serving, and not thinking that, oh, this will look great on my resume, because that's definitely not what nonprofits need.
So similar to everyone else here, it's about the mission and the people. I can remember back in 2009 when for 5 years I had spent as an accountant at the Rochester Credit Bureau. And there, obviously, they collect debts, right? They're bill collectors. Like I said, I was an accountant, but over those 5 years, I realized that, okay, we are constantly targeting people who literally can't pay their bills. There's a reason why these bills are here, in many cases, right? And that's when I say, you know what, I need to be on the other side of this, because it was a very harsh, aggressive organization. Yes, they were doing their jobs, but at the end of the day, they were attacking people almost every day, and I knew that that was not me. I mean, I was not a bill collector, but it's just that after some time, it started to wear on me, and that's when I transitioned out into my first nonprofit job, which was at the Catholic Family Center. Yes, I still worked in finance there, but it was like a different world. You're going from one organization that attacks people to another one that serves people. And immediately I knew, okay, this is where I belong. So fast forward to 2011, similar to Daisy and Wanda, it got personal at that point. That's when I started at Wilson Commencement Park, and I was a mother of one, and I was going through a divorce. But the clients that we served, we almost share the same story, and at that point it became personal. So that's why I say, for me, I was inspired by not only the mission, but the people. We are all just one step away from the next worst situation we could be in our lives, right? So when I realized that that's where I belong, I knew that, okay, now is where I begin my career that will be rooted in service. And fast forward to 2020, here we are. I still am working a career that's rooted in service. So that being said, it's about the mission that the organization represents, but it's about the demographics of people that it serves, connecting with them, knowing that, you know what, hey, this could have been me, or once upon a time, that was me, and that's what keeps me committed to working in the nonprofit sector.
Thank you, guys. We'll stay with Jennifer for the next question. What skills day job do you find transferable to the nonprofit boardroom and your work with those organizations?
They would be relationship building, networking, and fundraising. I mean, those are 3 critical skills that you want to possess as a board member. These are things that I do every day at work, outside of work, because with relationship building, you can build a relationship that you can take to your organization right in Wegmans. I know, because I've done it. But so those 3 skills for me, those are very important on a day-to-day basis. Those are very important skills at all of my board commitments. But that fundraising, that's an art. Everyone does not have the gift of asking for money. Me, I will ask for all of it. All of it. I won't think anything about it. That's what I do. But yeah, those would be the 3 skills that I would say are transferable from day to night.
Yeah, definitely. Fundraising is in nonprofits. If you don't fundraise, you won't survive, and that's the reality of nonprofits. So for me, because I lead a nonprofit and I'm always begging for money, I take that with me everywhere I go. And so I have learned how to beg for money in a very with finesse. When I worked at Wilson Commencement Park, I did not have finesse. And so I'd be like, we need money. What can you do? You know, we have babies that don't have formula, don't have diaper, don't have clothes. How much, what can you give us? And it was, sometimes we got money and a lot of times we didn't because they'd be like, my gosh, she's so aggressive. So you have to learn how to really make sure that people understand that what you're asking for is not a handout. What you're asking for is a contribution to society. And so it's just a different mindset. And really making sure that you're not exploiting those that you're serving, because that's the other delicate balance. People want to hear the sob stories and things of that nature, but remember that's someone's personal story. And so understanding that balance is critical, and I think that leading a nonprofit and being on boards of nonprofit, understanding that balance is critical. Of course, understanding operations, understanding funding streams, and the lack of funding is also something that is going to be critical as a board member, because you're going to really want to understand why do the financials look the way they do, and what are the other opportunities for that, for the organization. And I think Jennifer hit it on the head, relationship building. You cannot just know your fellow board members. You have to know the staff in the organization that you are serving. As a board member, you have a huge responsibility, huge fiscal responsibility, but also you have a huge responsibility to make sure that the people that are given to serve the constituents of that organization, that they're healthy too. Because what we don't realize is that there's something called secondary trauma, and when you hear about somebody's trauma over and over and over, and you're doing that day to day, that wears on you too. And we all live in a world, in a society where there are a lot of tragedies happening. And so we have to understand that we have human beings serving human beings. And so understanding it's not always about money, but how can you be part of a board that really is a healthy organization for those that are working and serving your constituents. It's critical that you understand that, and that you build with the leader an organization and a culture that is really making sure that there's self-care involved, and that you value those that are giving their all to serve your constituents.
Well, I'm a firm believer in the 3 T's, time, talent, and treasure, and I feel like more board members should have that explained to them from day one.
Oh, yeah. Bring your money. Bring your purse or your wallet.
You better bring everything with you, that presence, that time,
Yes.
and there had better be participation from a financial standpoint. On virtually every board that I'm on, I'm very vocal about participation in all 3 facets, because if you don't put your money where your mouth is, you ain't really there. I feel very, very passionate about that. For me personally, what do I bring to boards? I'm not really shy to ask the really difficult questions, whether it be from a vendor, from a leader. My sole purpose of being there is to be a resource for the organization, not challenging conventional thought. If I'm not asking difficult questions, then I'm doing a disservice to the organization and to myself. So I bring a level of transparency and honesty to the table always. And again, my given expertise has a lot to do with data and insight, and that happens to be something that's very valuable to nonprofits today. There are oftentimes a lot of statements made, and oftentimes I reply back with, so what data do we have to support that? Where does that data come from? How valid is it? How recent is it? Is it something that was given to you by a vendor or a partner, or is it something that an insight that you were able to generate yourself? Because I've never met vendors, or in some cases partners, that have ever said that they've done a bad job, or that they weren't delivering value. So I don't mind asking those questions. I don't mind diving into those details and asking secondary, tertiary questions about getting to the bottom of something.
I work for a mayor who has a huge heart, and she also makes decisions with that, but also with data. So similar to John was saying, when I come to the table, particularly if I'm sitting at a board meeting at the Salvation Army Retreat site, do we shut down our thrift stores or not? we had quite a few of them, and you've probably seen some around the neighborhoods that shut down. And that was data-driven, and I'm glad that we were able as a board to make a decision based on what was it costing us, and what was it really providing to the community. So we made a decision, and you probably see very few Salvation Army thrift stores now. Part of that decision was based on business, because you see many consignment shops, right? You also see many places that are reusing clothes, and some of them giving them away for free. So we were being impacted, and it was costing us more than we could to keep those stores running, so we made a decision. And we had to do that also with a heart, because people are telling you, oh, you're gonna take the free clothing away, and now we're not gonna have any revenue. For some of the ones that we sold to run one of our service operations over on Buffalo Road. So we thought about it, and I'm glad that we came to the right decision, because if we had kept them running, we would have hurt the bottom line even more than it had already. So that's something that I bring to the table. We don't just make decisions because they're politically right, but because they're data-driven. We wanna make sure that it's a healthy decision, and that we've checked from all angles. So that's one of the skill sets that I bring to the table to a place like the Salvation Army, to Latinas Unidas, to Pathstone. I recently just got off the El Seco board, and it's at least it has served me well, and to the organizations that I serve.
I get asked to sit on a lot of panels, and I do, and I enjoy doing it because I get to learn something from my fellow panelists. Here's my very quick learning from Sister Wanda. Already happened. So, gotta get you involved with it. One call and response. Two. Oh, there's only 3 black people in here. Let's try that again. I call, you respond, which means what I say, you say. 2. 0. 0. 2. One more time. 2. 0. 2. So that is Action for Better Communities United Way donor number. Well, I'm horrible at fundraising, right? But she just said, you gotta be subtle. So that was the subtle. When we sit in the United Way room, right?
Wow.
The campaign is starting, right? ABC's donor designation number is 2. Say it. 0. 2. All right. So I learned that tonight. She read my bio. She talked about 2 degrees. Third one that I don't list in my bio that I use more than any other one. And it's the degree I got from the Sidewalk University. My lived experience. I use that more than any other degree that I have. Anything I do, and I'm the chief servant at ABC, and my experience that I bring, having grown up, when I came to this country, I was an adult already. So that has shaped my thinking in a kind of way, and having what I call the best of both worlds, to be living in America for the last 35 years. So I bring that experience to everything that I do. That's really, really important. Along with that is judgment. Daisy just mentioned, you gotta make judgment all the time, on very, very difficult things. But while judging things and people and situations, and you said something that's similar as well, empathy is really, really important. Because from that lived experience, and my early days in Rochester were rough. This year, my wife and I celebrate our 30th wedding anniversary. The first 2 weeks I spent with my wife is because I was homeless. And she said, I'll let you stay on my couch for a couple weeks. I haven't left that couch yet. But to understand deeply what it means to be in a really desperate situation like that really helps me in terms of making decisions that affect people's lives. And that is really, 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 really important. So those things I bring, oh, I know, by the way, I have a master's degree in finance that comes in every now and then. So, but those things, the lived experience, exercising judgment from a point of empathy, and things that I use like all the time when I sit at ABC or the various boards that I sit on.
Thank you, guys. We're going to skip to question 5, just so we can have some more time for great questions from the audience. So we'll start back with Jennifer. We have many young leaders here in our group. What advice would you give a young leader, or really anyone interested in joining a nonprofit board, or even just getting involved with a nonprofit?
It's doesn't get involved. I mean, you make it personal. It can be something that you care deeply about, an issue that you see going on around you that you know that you possibly have some solutions to. I mean, because it can start, like I said, it can start with a problem that you see that you've been made aware of and say, wow, this is how I think they should handle that, or this can make that better. Or again, it can be something that's just near and dear to you, whether it's sickness that's affected someone, whether it's a certain population of people that you can relate to, or that you just simply care about. Just find a cause and get involved. I mean, there are a lot of tables in Rochester, a lot, are in desperate need of fresh and different perspectives. So don't be afraid to reach out to people. Look up some organizations, connect with some people, network with your peers around you, and just find a cause and get involved. It's that simple.
So, ditto, and I'm gonna say, being on a nonprofit board is a second job. So set time aside for your second job. And I say that because if you're doing it right, you will be at every event. You will always be talking about the organization. You will have opportunities that come about, that you're connecting someone that you just met, or you're at a training and you see it, you meet someone that has a resource that you can connect to your nonprofit. It is a second job. So there's a huge responsibility with being part of a board, and just remember that you're going into a room many times to look over financials and look over minutes and look over reports, but behind all that are lives, are people impacted by the decisions that you make at that table. And when you forget about that, it's easy to say, cut this, cut that. And just remember, every decision that you make affects someone's life. It's a number on a piece of paper, but it is a life. And it could just be, and it could be a household, and it could be a neighborhood, and it could be a community. So I take it very serious. Be present in board meetings. Read over the materials. Do not go into a board meeting without reading those materials, without understanding the financials. Ask questions. I think as young professionals, I know when I first started being on boards, I was just like, I didn't really understand some of the things that were going on, and I was too afraid to ask. But I've also had the pleasure and the honor and a blessing to work with everyone on this panel except for John. And John, we're going to connect because we're going to work too. One of the things I can tell you about Jennifer, about Daisy, and about Jerome is their consistency. I have seen their passion come through their work consistently. They're not in it for anything other than to serve. So check your egos at the door. It's not about you. It's about the people that the organization you are participating in. It's about those people that organization serves. So understand that being a servant leader is not about recognition. And nonprofits, there are plenty of them in Rochester. Plenty of them in Rochester. But they truly need people that are committed to doing the work.
You know, every time someone gives a response, I'm just trying to think, how can I stack up? I mean, I'm on a panel with what I think are some of the most authentic and impactful nonprofit leaders in the city. For me, it begins and ends with passion. That is such an important word because, you know, do I know a lot about finance? As a small business owner, I better know a little bit. I don't have a finance degree. Are there, you know, I have a little bit of a background in fundraising, so I can bring something to the table there. But I have never once had someone question my board capability or board knowledge because of the level of passion that I bring to the table. I don't think any of us have ever said or discouraged someone from being a part of any nonprofit because of without a lack of passion behind it. Like, that is where it all begins. And I mean passion in every sense. You don't need to be on a board to have an impact. You could go to events consistently, you can volunteer, and it could lead to a board position if you so think it should. But making sure that that passion is present, beginning, end, always, is essential. So if your interest is lackluster, if your interest is to add something to your resume, which I personally have seen other board members never show up. What is the point of you being there? There is somebody else that is willing to be passionate and sit in that seat. And that's how your leadership as a board member can affect change, through that passion and through understanding and empathy. These are required if you wanna really thrive and be able to contribute to a nonprofit. That's what they need on top of time and treasure, of course, treasure.
I echo everything that's been said, and one of the examples I will use is I have a 36-year-old son whom I'm proud to say is a third-generation graduate of LLDP. My father was one of the founding members and graduated in '83. He invited me to participate in '88, and I graduated. And then my son, I'm proud to say, was also the class selected person as a spokesperson in 2010. And I'm also proud to say that I work with my son. He is a senior supervisor for code in the city of Rochester. So one of the things that I've done is try to thinking about boards. And recently, last year, he was asked to be on the board of a Little League. And it was a Little League that is quite well organized. It's like, these people are really serious. Like, they take this really serious, and he's never seen so many parents like, whoa. So he accepted the position of coach. And, you know, 4-year-olds, he thought it was a piece of cake. Little did he know he was going to be working 3 nights a week.
Wow.
He was so engaged in this Little League that he said, Mom, I don't know what I did. And I said, remember when I talked to you that you said you were thinking about this, you said that you wanted to do it for your son, Albert Jr., third, and you wanted to make sure that you were there present for him because your job takes you away so much that you wanted to take some time for this. So you're bringing to the table, you know, what? He says, well, I'm a pretty good baseball player. I go, okay, so that's one skill set. I said, but the other piece is that you're being a good influence and a good example to your son. But then at the end of the season, the season ended and he came up to me in tears in his eyes because the children that were part of his team just took to him because he was present in their lives. And there was a little girl who been diagnosed with autism who just didn't talk. But at the end of the season, because he took such time to be present and committed to that cause, to be there, that she came up to him, I still get children, she said, thank you, Coach.
Wow.
That to him just blew him up, and he said, this was worth it. It was worth the 10 o'clock at night sewing banners together for the kids, putting letters on their shirts. It was worth it. And I said, T, you were present, and I will advise all of you, pick wisely, ask about expectations, which he didn't do, so lessons learned for him. He didn't realize that he also had to bring his wallet to the table and contribute, put your money. And the other piece for him was that he had to ask questions about expectations. What do you expect from your board member if I say yes? Sometimes we get involved in organizations that as we go along, and then we get frustrated. And then we get like, I don't wanna go to that board meeting, forget it. You ask up front what they expect from you. How long is the term? A term could be 5 years, a term could be 2 years. How many do you expect for me to renew? 2, 3? I was on a board and I didn't realize I had signed up for 10 years, like, oh my goodness, how did this happen? It was a nice place, so I mean, I wasn't upset about that, but it's just, wow, 10 years. So ask those questions before you say yes. Some boards will meet with you, they might have a nomination committee, so they'll sit down with you and interview you, and you can ask all the questions you want. We do that for the Salvation Army. We take people out to breakfast or lunch and say, this is our charter, this is what we expect. Do you have any questions? And we do have a financial expectation. We start at a particular amount and we go up. And if you feel that that's something you cannot do, then we say, what can you do? Because we want to see your skin in the game aside from your time. So ask all those questions before you sign up for a board. It's very important because it's going to save you a lot of time and frustration.
Sound advice. My couple cents to this question. Get to know the person looking back at you in the mirror really, really well. Get to know that person on a deeply spiritual level. Let me give you, elaborate on what I mean by that, using myself as an example. I was born on a Tuesday. The spiritual system that I espouse to places really great significance on the day and the time that you were born. So I was born on a Tuesday, so which means I'm a compassionate warrior, right? Also, in doing that study, found that warriors never fight. Warriors protect their community, their loved ones from harm. So, in learning that about myself, and it aids in my purpose. And I know that clearly my purpose on this planet is to help people in a very compassionate way. So whoever you are, you need to know that person better than you know anybody else. Because as we said before, if you're going to serve on a board, that board's mission has some alignment with your spirit. Because if you're incongruent with your spirit, it's going to show up in some really bad ways. So that, I think, is really important. Secondly, you got to bring something to the table. You have to have some skill and knowledge in something. Certainly, passion, you can't teach passion. You either have it or you don't. But you have to have some sort of skill that that board is going to need. It could be fundraising, it could be finance, it could be HR, name it. But you got to bring something to the table because you're there to, like Wanda said, to serve. But to serve. Third, find out, again, this is part of knowing you yourself. What is your unconditional primary virtue? What virtue do you hold highest other than any others? Period. For me, my primary virtue is justice. That's how I make decisions. Is it just? You need to know that about yourself because, like Daisy was saying, you're going to be asked to make decisions that are going to impact people's, community's life. What is your decision-making matrix that you're going to look through to make those decisions? You need to know that about yourself. And finally, get a mentor or 3 or 4. You know, so you can discuss with him or her, you know, bounce because I have at least 10. At least 4 of them are millennials. Because the work I do impacts millennials and I need their point of view. Sure. So I get a lot of advice from people who are much younger. I check in with my mentors on a weekly basis because I really believe that he who knows something knows nothing at all. You know, so those are the 4 things I would encourage you strongly to do. And a lot of it is really going inward and knowing the person that you are, so that when you step to something, you're stepping with it really with a lot of confidence.
Great, thank you. Excellent advice. At this time, with just about 10 minutes left, I want to go ahead and open it up to the audience for any questions.
Hi, thank you. This has been wonderful to hear all of you speak. This is really, really great advice for all of us. One of the things I was wondering is, how do you juggle your family life and this passion for wanting to help the community that I know I personally struggle with? And we kind of talked about that a little bit, and having to dedicate that time. How did you handle that, or what advice do you have for young families or anyone with a family?
Take them with you. That's how my son got involved. That's how I got involved. My father, I'm from the Bronx. My father took me with him to political campaigns. He was a rebel rouser, so I went with him, and I got the juice. And then when I came here, he took me with him to meet Mayor Johnson. He wanted me to meet Nancy Padilla. He wanted me to meet Mayor Ryan. And I'm his oldest. My father always wanted a son first. We got a daughter. But aside from, me being a daughter, if you talk to my 5 siblings, they would say I'm his twin, because I behave like him, I talk like him, and I think that's an honor. He's still alive, he's 87 years old. And so I learned that from him. So my kids, I was just on the phone before I came here with my daughter, and I said, I gotta go, I have to be on a panel. She goes, Mom, I'm gonna write a memoir about you, because either you're paneling, or you're networking, or you're fundraising, but my kids got used to this life, and now I'm proud to say that it's not foreign to them for them to give. So they were okay with me going to different meetings, but we're empty nesters, so now I have a husband who, he's still working full time, but right around 7, he'll say, so what are we doing for dinner? I don't know, but it comes back to balance out. It's when you keep your family out of it that they don't come to appreciate it, and they're like, well, she's just working. No, she's not working. She's doing something good in the community, and that's when they make the connection. That's how it worked for me.
I would also say, I think Daisy said it best earlier when she said, ask questions. I think one of the things is, what is the expectation? Sometimes boards meet in the evening, sometimes they meet early morning, sometimes they meet during lunch, and it's really understanding what is the expectation of board members. You may not be able to be at every event that they invite board members to, but you can choose to say, okay, I'm going to set aside for this month, every month I'm going to set aside 4 hours of event participation, and really kind of understand how it impacts your schedule. It's critical that it does fit your life, and because so what you don't want it to do is impact your life, because then you start something and then you may not be able to finish it or contribute at the level that you want to contribute. So understand that there's a lot of ways to be involved. You don't necessarily have to be a board member. You could be on an ad hoc committee. You can also be a volunteer and help out in those ways until you feel that you have enough time in your schedule to kind of fit in the other things. But I would not let that stop anyone from participating, because a lot of board members start off as volunteers first, and then and I know that's happened for me as well. So just know that you don't have to jump straight to being a board member and being like full-time on it, but you can contribute in the way that you can. So asking questions is going to be critical before you say yes, and really looking at how do you marry that with your current expectations for your personal life. And I would say that if it wasn't because my mom, instilled it in, we live in a community that we don't take from, and your community only grows and evolves when you are part of giving to that community. So it is imperative that if you are passionate about giving back to your community, that your children understand, that your family understand the value of that. Why is that so important? Because you want that legacy to also live on in your kids. My kids know part of our life is giving back to our community. We didn't have much, but we also wanted to make sure that we were part of giving back. And so I'm proud of my kids today. They're adults and they have children, and we do community service. It's imperative, you know. So I think that there's a learning there that is critical as well, and it does take time, but I think it'll be a great return of investment for you and your family.
I think you mentioned, you know, how to juggle the family, and everyone on this panel has had different life stages that we've gone through, and there are times when you can be more involved in nonprofits, and there are times when you can be less involved. I got married a little bit later. Got married at 31. We actually just had our first child 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. So for the past 7 years, both my wife and I have gone full speed ahead on trying to have as much of an impact, not only professionally, but in the community as possible, however we could contribute. And now going into this next chapter, there really is questions that we have of each other. How, you know, being here tonight, I have a 3-week-old at home, and my wife has been there all day taking care of our son. But she understands the importance of volunteering and giving back and having an impact. But this may start a time in my life, or at least for the short term, where I may not be able to add another board. I've literally added boards and committees almost every few months, things that I feel passionate about, want to be a part of. And I'm a firm believer, as is my wife, and when you do something, you give everything that you have. But there comes a time when you need to also focus on at home. Again, there's this balance that happens throughout your life when you can contribute more, and maybe at a time a little bit less, but always knowing that that is a focus and part of you. And that comes from, you know, my mom, who worked her entire career at Villa of Hope, and would take us to Thanksgivings at group homes as a kid. And we were always involved with different places in the city. So it gets passed down, and it's always a part of your life. And I hope to set that same example for my son and hopefully future kids, that, you know, no matter what, this is always a part of that life. And if you're raised with that expectation, then it becomes second nature. You figure it out. You figure out how to do it.
So I want to jump in too. It's funny that Daisy said, take them with you, because seriously, I have a daughter. She's almost 16 now, and that's exactly what I do. She comes with me, and you know, one of the things I've learned, that as she gets older, you're actually setting an example and encouraging your child or children to be better people, right? To be better members of society. I mean, at the events that I would volunteer at before becoming a board member for some of the boards I serve on, she was always with me. So she was like 5, 6, 7 years old, just standing around passing out programs. Things as simple as that. And as she got older, there were other things that she found herself getting involved in, or actually volunteering to do. So it's true, you know, when they're a certain age, take them with you. They love it. One of my current board colleagues right now, we were just in a meeting the other night, and she was talking about how when she moved here from DC, how she's had 3 babies. I said, yeah, your babies are like foundation babies, because we literally watch you have them all, bring them all, nurse them all. So, like, you know, this is an example that you're setting for your children. And I'm a firm believer in what Daisy said. Take them with you. Expose them to the other side of your life.
And nonprofits is human service. So, you know, understand that bringing your children with you is not going to be like, oh my goodness, what are you doing? It's like, oh, you know, it's a family environment, it's a family culture. You're serving families, you're serving your community. And so understand that when you come to a board as a member, you're bringing your community with you. And that is understood in nonprofit. You know, it's what we want to see. So it wouldn't be foreign to anyone.
There's, recently I have my 25-year-old with me at a function, and people started asking me, who is that young? He's got a full-grown beard. And I said, well, I'm not going to embarrass him, but about 5 of these ladies change your diaper, Patrick. Oh, he wanted to hide, but it was the truth. because they were with me when we started Latinos Unidas, and we was like a group of women, we take care of each other. Give me the baby,
Right.
go do that, give me the baby, and that's how we started the organization, just helping each other out.
Well, thank you guys, thank you so much. In the interest of time and staying on schedule, I want to thank all of our panelists and give them a huge round of applause.